All right, everybody, what's going on, man? What's happening? How y'all doing? Hope y'all are enjoying y'all day. This is SWAC Talk as usual, and I am your tour guide, C. Wells, coming at you, and we're gonna recap week 12. So, we're 12 weeks in the books in the season, 1 week left in the regular season, and the championship game is set. So we don't have to worry about who's gonna play in the championship game, and we don't have to worry about where they're playing. Um, Jackson State and Prairie View will be playing in the SWAC Championship in Jackson, Mississippi. Prairie View was able to clinch the West Division on Saturday due to Alcorn's loss to Jackson State. So even though Prairie View dropped the game, it was a non-conference game, but even though they lost Saturday, they were able to secure their West Division. So two teams in the championship, first time since 2013 for Jackson State, first time since 2009 for Prairie View. Um, Both teams looking for the first championship. Prairie View since 2009, Jackson State since 2007. So somebody's gonna come up good in this game. So in Jackson, so we'll check that out when we'll preview that when we get to it. Um, as usual, socials are on the screen down below. Feel free to check all of those out. If you haven't done so already, why don't you go ahead and subscribe to the channel and like the videos, share them, and hit that notification bell so you can be alerted to any content that I upload. Coaching search season is coming around, so there'll probably be a few videos that drop here and there. I also will be covering basketball. I'm gonna start doing that in a couple of weeks once we get closer to SWAC play. Um, gonna cover men's and women's basketball during SWAC play, so make sure to check that out. Wednesday, week 13 preview. Thursday, Swag Smoke, as usual, live. It's Thanksgiving, live episode, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. And Sunday, week 13 recap. And that'll be it for the regular season. And we get ready for the championship game and then probably do some season recaps and things like that. So got a lot coming down the line. So make sure to keep checking out the channel and subscribe, man. Make sure you subscribe. I say that till I get blue in the face. Make sure you subscribe. So let's go ahead and jump directly into this, man. We're gonna start off with Texas A&M and Prairie View. Now the Panthers dropped a 52-3 decision to the Aggies on Saturday. Not a lot to really take from this game. Prairie View didn't really get on. They didn't get on the board until 5 minutes and 46 seconds left in the third quarter with a 25-yard field goal. The Aggies kind of had their way. So they did, pretty much what you would expect in a game like this. Statistically, Prairie View 9 first downs, the Aggies 24, 147 yards rushing for Prairie View, 279 for the Aggies, 7 yards passing for Prairie View. I had to check that again. 7 yards passing, I'm not quite sure about that. 2 of 12, no touchdowns, no interceptions. 168 yards passing for the Aggies. 12 of 19, two touchdowns, one interception. 154 yards for Prairie View total offense. 2.9 yards per play. They fumbled once and lost it, and they had 5 penalties for 25 yards. Aggies 447 total offense, 63 plays, 7.1 yards per play. No fumbles, one penalty for 15 yards. Prairie View 6 punts for 42-yard average. A&M 1 punt for 48-yard average. Time of possession, Prairie View 29 minutes. Texas A&M 30 minutes and 25 seconds. Six of 16 on third down for Prairie View. 6 of 10 for the Aggies. 0 for 2 for Prairie View on fourth down. Um, two for two for Texas A&M on fourth down. Um, Red zone 1 for 1 for Prairie View. Five of 6 for the Aggies. One sack for Prairie View. 4 for Texas A&M. Individually, Jazon Connolly was 1 for 7 for 5 yards. Jawan passed 1 for 3 for 2 yards. He was sacked 4 times. Chris Scott 0 for 2. That's 7 yards passing. That's crazy to me. 10 of 14 for 150 yards, 2 touchdowns, no sack, no interception, one sack for Zach Calzada. Blake Boast 2 of 5, 18 yards, one interception. Jaden Stewart rushed for 100 yards for Prairie View. He had 24 carries for 100 yards. Connolly, 6 carries for 41 yards. Um, Graham, 4 carries, 21 yards. Amari Daniels, 8 carries, 70 yards for A&M and a touchdown. Isaiah Spiller, 9 carries, 70 yards and a touchdown. L.J. Johnson, 11 carries, 60 yards. Receiving, Goodwater had 1 catch for 5 yards and White 1 catch for 2 yards. Moose Muhammad, 5 catches, 77 yards, 2 touchdowns for the A&M. Texas A&M. Jalen Preston, 3 catches, 47 yards. Drake Cheatham led Prairie View with 12 tackles. Trayshawn Smith was 7. Darius Campbell was 6. James and Moore and Green each had 5. Tackle for loss: Green, Dumas, Obi, Cheatham, Marshall, and James each had 1 tackle for loss apiece. And the sack was by Obi. No forced fumbles. Interception was by Drake Cheatham. Texas A&M was led by Aaron Hansford with 8 tackles. Tyree Johnson, 6. 5 for Edgerrin Cooper. 4 for DeMarvin Leal, Jordan Gilbert, and Chris Russell. Tackles for loss: Peavy, 1.5. Diggs, 1.5. Johnson, Leal, and Hansford each had 1 tackle for loss apiece. Jones, Cooper, Johnson, Harmon, White, and Harris each had a half a tackle loss apiece. Sacks were by Johnson, Leal, and Peavy with 1 each, and Jones and Cooper each had a half a tackle for loss. Forced fumble was by Johnson. Fumble recovery was by Hansford, who returned 17 yards for a touchdown and no interception. So other than that, 7 yards passing, which is almost impossible to do. This was a pretty much a by the book game. Nothing out of the ordinary really happened. Prairie was able to get in and get out. And now they can get ready for their game against Valley and then get ready for the SWAC Championship. So all in all, this, on the field, it wasn't a good day for the Panthers, but they came out on top by clinching the West Division. So they won and lost at the same time. So congratulations, Prairie View, for West Division Championship and moving on to the next game. So the next game that we will talk about is Alabama A&M defeating Arkansas Pine Bluff by a score of 52-24. A&M basically controlled Alabama A&M basically controlled this game. They led 35-17 at the half, and they outscored Pine Bluff 17-7 in the second half. So not really anything. They never really were in any trouble. They went up 14-0 before Pine Bluff was able to score on a 17-yard pass from Perry to Wilkes. Then they scored again to make it 21-14 on a 62-yard pass from Glass to Hilaire. Crossley got Pine Bluff back on the board within 7 at 21-14 when he ran a 2-yard touchdown. Bryson Clark caught a 16-yard pass from Glass to make the score 28-14. Pine Bluff got a field goal with 4 minutes and 50 seconds to go, and then Ryan Morrow had a 1-yard run for Alabama A&M to make the halftime score 35-17. Skylar Perry had a 30-yard touchdown run to cut the lead to 11 at 35-24. And then from then on, Alabama A&M scored 2 more touchdowns and a field goal. Ibrahim, a 19-yard pass from Glass, and Moore, a 53-yard pass from Glass, and then a 24-yard field goal with 12 minutes and 31 seconds for the final margin. So this was a game that basically Alabama A&M controlled from start to finish. Pine Bluff, they looked better in this game offensively. They had a pretty balanced game. 22 first downs, 216 yards rushing, 6 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns, 220 yards passing, 22 of 42, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, giving them a total of 436 of total offense, 78 plays, 5.6 yards per play. They did fumble twice and lost 1. They had 6 penalties for 42 yards. Like I said, that's a balanced game. 220 passing, 216 running. That's probably one of the better offensive games that they played all year. Again, the A&M defense is not that good, but Pine Bluff has been, it was a question of how this team would play anyway in this game, knowing that their season was basically over. This was their last game. I thought they played fairly well, especially offensively. Defensively, another story. A&M 24 first down, 81 yards rushing, 3 yards per carry, 1 touchdown, 470 through the air, 29 of 38, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception, 551 total offense on 65 plays, 8.5 yards per play, no fumbles, and they had 9 penalties for 100 yards. Pine Bluff punted 4 times for 43-yard average, A&M 3 punts for 44-yard average. Time of possession, Pine Bluff 29 minutes and 12 seconds. This says 45 minutes and 45 minutes and 47 seconds, but Alabama A&M, that doesn't add up. But 6 of 17 on third down for the Golden Lions, 5 of 11 for the Bulldogs, 1 for 5 on fourth down for the Golden Lions, 1 for 1 for Alabama A&M. UAPB 3 of 3 in the red zone, 6 of 7 for Alabama A&M, 1 sack for the Golden Lions, 2 for the Bulldogs. Individually, Skylar Perry 22 of 42, 220, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He was sacked twice. Glass 26 of 33, 450 yards, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. He was sacked once. Xavier Langford was 3 of 5 for 20 yards, no interceptions, no touchdowns, 1 interception, no sack. Kier Crossley, 22 carries, 131 yards, 1 touchdown. That's probably one of his better games of the season. Average 6 yards per carry. Skylar Perry, 13 carries, 85 yards, and a touchdown, 6.5 yards per carry. Gary Quarles, 13 carries, 37 yards. Langford, 2 carries, 26 yards. Tyron Ralph led UAPB with 4 catches for 90 yards. Josh Wilkes, 7 catches, 54 yards. DeWarn Miller, 3 catches, 27 yards. Odu Hilaire, 8 catches, 162 yards, and a touchdown for the Bulldogs. Ibrahim, 7 catches, 115 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Gardner, 3 catches, 67 yards. Moore, 2 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown. Clark, 3 catches, 26 yards, and a touchdown. Anderson, 2 catches, 9 yards, and a touchdown. Cameron Young, 2 catches, 25 yards. Stewart led the Golden Lions with 8 tackles along with Monroe Beard. He also had 8. Akins and Peppers each had 7. Younger with 4. Watts, Caleb Knox, and Kyle Knox, they each had 3 tackles apiece. 1.5 tackles for loss for Beard. Watts, 1 tackle for loss. Akins, 1 tackle for loss. Gray, Younger, and Former each had a half a tackle for loss apiece. Sack, Gray and Younger each had a half a sack apiece. No forced fumbles and no interception was by Raekwon Prince. He returned at 47 yards. Alabama A&M was led by Trenton McGee and Demetrius Biambi with 7 tackles apiece. 6 for Amari Holloway, Easy Omume, and Hopkins each had 4 tackles, along with Austin. Tackle for loss, Austin with 1.5, McGee, Dre Carter, Quarles, Biambi, they each had 1. Armani Holloway, a half a tackle for loss. Sacks were by McGee and Carter. Forced fumble by McGee and Barnes. Fumble recovery was credited to the team, and Amari Holloway had an interception. So this is, honestly, this was probably a better game than you could have expected from Pine Bluff at the end of the season, going through what they went through, with that horrendous end of a season. Basically, from after week 1, the team went downhill until they beat Grambling. So this team really did not play well most of the season, and they finished off that season with another loss. But they played fairly well, and I think they fought and they kind of stayed with it, and they just didn't have enough to get a W. But Alabama A&M rebounds from that 3-game losing streak they had in the middle of the season to finish their season at 7-3, 5-3 in the conference. So they finished the season on a 4-game winning streak. They had won 3 games in a row, then they lost 3, and then they won 4. So a very streaky season for the Bulldogs. The middle of the season is what did them in, but they finished with a winning record overall. So strong end to the season, bad middle. is what really did them in. Like I said, Pine Bluff finished 1-7 in the conference and 2-9 overall. Finished on a 2-game losing streak, and that was basically bookended by uh, that basically was had a win in the middle of that and a bunch of losses before that. So not a good season for Pine Bluff. They can go back to the drawing board. We'll see what happens. I don't think there's going to be any chance that Doc Gamble loses his job right now, but I think he will be on the hot seat moving into next season. And that brings us to our next game, which is Texas Southern and Alabama State. The Hornets pick up a victory in this one by a score of 24-21. This was a pretty entertaining game. You know, this was a game that was pretty much tight all the way through. Halftime score was 7-7. Alabama State led 17-14 at the end of 3 quarters, and then the score both teams scored a touchdown apiece in the 4th quarter. And Alabama State was able to really just basically hold off Texas Southern. The last time Texas Southern had the ball, they missed a field goal with 2 minutes and 49 seconds to go in the game, which would have tied the game up. And Alabama State got the ball back and ran the clock out to steal the game. So this was a very entertaining game. Came down to the end. Texas Southern had an opportunity to tie the game. Like I said, they missed a field goal from 48 yards and were unable to seal the deal. But scoring wise, Brandon McDuffie had a 9-yard pass from Joe Owens, who got the start for Alabama State, to take a 7-0 lead. Andrew Body, 4-yard touchdown run for Texas Southern to tie the score up. Hunter Hanson, 47-yard field goal for Alabama State, which basically was the winning point as far as the total. Ladarius Owens, a 1-yard touchdown run for Texas Southern, make the score 14-10. Robert Rivers, 27-yard punt return for Alabama State to make the score 17-14. Jonathan Giles, 30-yard pass from Body. And Wallace Corker scored on a 14-yard pass from Owens. That basically was the winning score. That score came with 6 minutes and 51 seconds to go in the game. So, like I said, a back and forth game. Both teams, you know, they fought hard. Alabama State picked up a nice victory to close out their SWAC schedule. 15 first downs for Texas Southern, 207 yards rushing, 5.9 yards per rush, 2 touchdowns, 163 yards through the air for the Tigers, 13 of 25, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, giving them a total of 370 on the night, 60 plays, 6.2 yards per play. No fumbles. They had 6 penalties for 49 yards. Alabama State, 19 first downs, 213 on the ground, 5.6 yards per carry. No touchdowns, 150 yards through the air for the Hornets, 18 of 27, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, giving them a total of 363. Total offense, 65 plays, 5.6 yards per play. They fumbled once, didn't lose it. So 1 turnover for each team in this game. 3 penalties for 35 yards for Alabama State. Texas Southern punted 5 times for a 32-yard average. 38-yard per punt average for Alabama State on 5 punts. Time of possession, 21 minutes and 33 seconds for Texas Southern. 38-25 for Alabama State. 5 of 14 for the Tigers on 3rd down. 4 of 14 for the Hornets on 3rd down. 0 for 1 for Texas Southern on 4th down. 1 for 1 for Alabama State on 4th down. 2 of 2 in the red zone for the Tigers. 2 of 4 for the Hornets. Each team had 1 sack apiece. Individually, Andrew Body, 13 of 25, 163 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and 1 sack. Joe Owens went the whole way for Alabama State in this game. He was 18 of 27, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He was sacked once. Body, 9 carries, 134 yards for Texas Southern, and 1 touchdown. Averaged 14 yards a carry, so he did a good job on the ground. As he's been doing most games with his legs, he had a really good, strong game running in this game. Owens, 16 carries, 50 yards, and a touchdown. Ja'Cory Merritt had his biggest game of the season, 14 carries, 106 yards, no touchdowns, but he did average 7.6 yards per carry. Ezra Gray, 12 carries, 66 yards, 5.5 yards per carry. this is the kind of game that I think most people expected from their running game pretty much all year. You know, that 1-2 punch of Gray and Merritt. You kind of expected them to put up good yardage. They didn't really have that kind of season this year, so that kind of hurt them as a whole. Keelan Davis, 3 catches, 91 yards for Texas Southern. Jonathan Giles, 3 catches, 39 yards and a touchdown. Jeremiah Hickson led Alabama State with 3 catches for 54 yards. Wallace Corker, 5 catches, 35 yards and a touchdown. Teron Jones, 4 catches, 23 yards. Brandon McDuffie, 2 catches, 18 yards and a touchdown. Tim Walton led Texas Southern with 12 tackles. Isaiah Hamilton, 7. Tyler Martinez, 7. Joshua Murray, 6. DeMontario Anderson, 5. Malachi Mitchell and Drew Robinson with 4 tackles for loss. Tim Walton, 3.5. 1.5 for Anderson, Williams, Martinez, and Hamilton each had 1 tackle for loss apiece, and half a tackle for loss for Robinson and Frazier. And the sack was by Anderson. Forced fumble by Walton, and interception was by Hamilton. Alabama State was led by Nicholas Terry with 8 tackles, Christian Clark with 7, Keenan Isaac with 6, Jeffrey Scott with 5, Ershaw Davis with 4, Kamari Lewis, Rumpersad, and Ogletree each had 3 tackles apiece. 1.5 tackles for loss for Terry, 1 for Robinson, 1 for Lewis, and a half a tackle for loss for Clark. Sacks were by Terry and Clark each had a half a sack apiece. No forced fumbles. Interception was by Davis. Again, this was a pretty entertaining game. Two teams who didn't really have a lot going on, but this, they fought tooth and nail to the end. Alabama State has 1 game left this season. They finished their SWAC season at 3-5. They're 4-6 right now. So they picked up a big win, after going 0-2 since they fired Coach Hill Ely. So they picked up a nice win there. Texas Southern finishes their finishes their season at 2-8. They did have one. They did have 1 game that didn't count in as far as standings go. That was the North American game, but they finished 2-6 in conference, which is their best record in a while. But they look strong for a good portion of the season. 2-6, 2-8 overall. So they wrapped up this season, and they should be a factor moving forward as long as they can keep this team together and continue to grow. The next game that we have is the Florida Classic. Florida A&M basically jumped all over Bethune-Cookman by a score of 46 to 21. Bethune-Cookman actually got this game started with the scoring. They actually scored on a big pass play to start the game. Opening play of the game, basically, Devin Black hit Darryl Powell for an 82-yard touchdown, and it looked like at that point that Bethune-Cookman would really be a problem in this game. But then FAMU, they ran off 43 unanswered points. From the first quarter to the third quarter, it was all FAMU, starting with Xavier Smith, a 48-yard touchdown. From Rashawn McKay, Jalen McLeod, a 2-yard touchdown run. Terrell Jennings, a 9-yard touchdown run. Actually, to backtrack a bit, the halftime score was 13-7. So Bethune-Cookman was still in this game, after one half. They kind of helped FAMU off the board for most of the game. The whole second quarter was scoreless. Third quarter, the Rattlers scored 30 points and basically blew this game out the water. Jennings, 9-yard touchdown run. Romo Martinez, 21-yard field goal. B.J. Bowler, 56-yard fumble recovery for a touchdown. Bishop Barnett, 38-yard touchdown run. Gentle Hunt, 46-yard big man TD. You got to always love a big man TD. So a 46-yard run by the big dude to make the score at 43-7. And Bethune-Cookman finally got back on the board with Kamari Everett caught a 9-yard pass from Black, made it score 43-14. Martinez kicked the field goal with 5.5 minutes to go from 29 yards to wrap up the scoring for the Rattlers. And then Black threw another touchdown to Everett for a final margin of 46-21. So basically, one half, this game was pretty close. The third quarter, FAMU snowed them under Two fumble recoveries for touchdowns. Really did Bethune-Cookman in this game. I thought, the first half was what this game would probably ultimately be, but fam, you really just handle business from then on. 11 first downs for the Wildcats, 51 yards rushing for the Wildcats, 2.2 yards per carry, 265 yards for Bethune-Cookman through the air, 3 touchdowns, 15 to 21. They also had 2 interceptions, giving them a total of 316 on total offense. They did average 7.2 yards per play. They had 2 fumbles and they lost them, so they had 4 turnovers on the night. They had 5 penalties for 40 yards. Florida A&M, 22 first downs, 276 yards rushing. That run attack was a huge factor in this game. 48 carries, 5.8 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns, 197 yards through the air, 17 to 25, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. They didn't really do a lot through the air. They didn't have to. That run game really controlled the game for them. Like I said, they only threw the ball 25 times, so they didn't fill the air up with footballs. They ran the ball 48 times, so they really wanted to run it, and they did what they wanted on the ground. 473 total offense on 73 plays, 6.5 yards per play, 2 fumbles. They didn't lose either one of them. They had 6 penalties for 40 yards. Bethune-Cookman punted 4 times for a 39-yard average. Fam, you punted 1 time for 30 yards. Time of possession, 23 minutes and 15 seconds for the Wildcats, 36 minutes and 45 seconds for the Rattlers. 5 of 10 on third down for Bethune-Cookman, no fourth down attempts. Florida A&M, 11 of 17 on third down. They were 0 for 2 on fourth down. 2 for 2 in the red zone for the Wildcats, 4 for 4 for the Rattlers. No sacks for Bethune-Cookman, 4 for Florida A&M. Individually, Devin Black was 10 of 13 for 231 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. He was sacked 4 times. Shannon Patrick, 5 of 8 for 34 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, no sacks. Rashawn McKay, 15 of 23 for 175 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, no sacks. Xavier Smith, 2 for 2, 22 yards. Devin Black led Bethune-Cookman with 8 carries for 19 yards. Quayshawn Bird, 8 carries, 14 yards. Bishop Barnett, 19 carries, 128 yards, and 1 touchdown. He averaged 6.7 yards per carry. Jalen McLeod, 10 carries, 77 yards. He averaged 7.7 yards per carry. He also had a touchdown. Terrell Jennings, 14 carries, 68 yards, 1 touchdown, 4.9 yards per carry. So they had a 3-headed monster. All of them did really good with the ball. Everybody had a nice per carry average. Each one of them had a touchdown. Like I said, they set out to run the football, and they did. They really made that a focus, and they did a good job of it. Darryl Powell, 3 catches, 164 yards for Bethune-Cookman, and 1 touchdown, including an 82-yarder to start the game. Kamari Everett, 6 catches, 64 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Xavier Smith, 6 catches, 82 yards, and a touchdown. Shareed, 2 catches, 43 yards. Chad Hunter, 4 catches, 41 yards. Malik Franklin led Bethune-Cookman with 10 tackles, Sutherland 9, Hill Robinson 8, Miller 8, Ontario Johnson and Hampton with 6 apiece, Thomas and Mason Hill with 5, Reeves and McKenzie with 4, tackles for loss. Franklin and Mason each had 1 apiece, half a tackles for loss for Thomas, Reeves, Hampton, and Grant. No sacks. Forced fumble was by Miller. No interceptions. Florida A&M was led defensively by Marquise Bell with 7 tackles, Stanley Mentor with 5, Antwar Collier with 4, B.J. Bowler with 4, Mayweather with 4, Isaiah Land with 3. Tackle for loss, Mentor and Land each had 2. Mayweather 1.5, Collier 1, Williams 1, Jenkins half a tackle for loss. Sacks, Mentor with 2 and Land with 2. Forced fumbles, Marquise Bell with 1, B.J. Bowler with a forced fumble. Fumble recoveries were by Bowler, who returned his 56 yards for a touchdown, and Gentle Hunt returned his 46 yards for a touchdown. Bowler also had an interception on the night, 36-yard return, and Marquise Bell had an interception. So, when you have a 10-game losing streak, a 9-game losing streak in a series, this is how you snap it, man. You beat the brakes off the team that you're facing, and you in that streak. Bethune-Cookman, that like I said, they were game early. They hung in there, but FAMU defense was just too much. Those two big touchdowns really deflated the Wildcats. The offense got clicking on the run game, and it was just too much. So now, FAMU, they await to find out the word of if they would qualify for the FCS playoffs. By the time you watch this, you'll probably know what their fate is. The selection show is at 11:30 a.m. Central Time, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So by the time you see this, you probably know what's what. So hopefully, if they have opportunity to make it, they can make it and put on a good showing. If not, then they have to go back to the drawing board and see what happens next season. But Florida A&M finishes their regular season with a record of 8-1 in conference. That one loss was a 7-6 game to Jackson State that they had opportunities to win. So, if they can probably if they don't make the postseason, they can kick themselves over that 1-point loss to Jackson State. They finished 10-2 overall. Finished on a 9-game winning streak. So once they lost to Jackson State, they beat Fort Valley, and then they lost to USF. They ran the table from then on. So that includes a victory over MEAC champ South Carolina State. So that's a solid finish to their season with 9 straight wins in their first SWAC season, 8-1. Bethune-Cookman finishes the up and down tumultuous season at 2-7 in the conference and 2-10 overall. They started the season with an 8-game losing streak. They won 2 games in a row, and then they finished the season losing. So, a really up and down season for Bethune-Cookman at the end of the season, but they just they ran out of gas. This team, for whatever reason, they couldn't really compete early in games, and they found themselves in a hole, and most times they had to come back and fight and claw to get back into games. They finally got a couple dubs at the end, including the upset over Alcorn, but this game here was just too much for them, so they finished, like I said, 2-10 overall, and 2-7 in conference. Well, that should be 2-7 in conference, 2-9 overall, because I don't think they played 12 games. So that brings us to our final game of the season, of the week. Excuse me. Jackson State defeats Alcorn by a score of 24-10. This game was really tight. In the first half, 0-0 after one quarter. Jackson State was able to get on the board in the second quarter, make the halftime score 7-3. Alcorn tied it up Jackson State went up 10-7. Alcorn tied it up at 10, and then Jackson State scored the last 14 points to win this game. So pretty much an entertaining game. It was a game, like I said, it was a back and forth affair. Jackson State, they got the scoring started early. Alcorn went up 3-0 on a field goal in the second, with 3 minutes and 15 seconds to go in the second quarter. Shador Sanders threw a pass to Keith Corbin for 3 yards with 8 seconds to go in the first half to make the score 7-6 at the half. Second half, Jackson State got a field goal with 8 minutes and 19 seconds to go in the third quarter to make the score 10-3. Alcorn got a 50-yard pass from Harper to Kelvonte Key to tie the game up at 10. Then Jackson State would score again in the third quarter. Sanders hit Shane Hooks for a 31-yard touchdown pass to make the score 17-10 after the extra point. And then the final score of the game came with 3 minutes and 23 seconds to go in the fourth quarter when Sanders hit Keith Corbin for his second touchdown of the night, this time for 2 yards out. Extra point good, made the score 24-10. Team-wise, this game was fairly even. Alcorn, 15 first downs, Jackson State, 21. Alcorn ran the ball for 71 yards on the night, 2.4 yards per carry. Jackson State, 66 yards rushing, 2.8 yards per carry. 297 yards passing for Jackson State, 210 for Alcorn. Alcorn 18 of 21, one touchdown, one interception. Jackson State 28 of 39, no interceptions and 3 touchdowns. 59 plays for Alcorn for 281 yards, 4.7 yards per play. 5.7 yards per play for Jackson State. They had 63 plays for 363 yards. And like I said, they had one interception. Neither team lost a fumble. Penalties, 5 penalties for 27 yards for Alcorn, 13 penalties for 120 yards for Jackson State. Time of possession, 28 minutes and 55 seconds for Alcorn, 31 minutes and 5 seconds for Jackson State. 5 of 15 on third down for Alcorn, 5 of 13 for Jackson State. Alcorn 1 for 2 on fourth down. Jackson State didn't attempt the fourth down. So this game, like I said, it was a pretty even game. It basically came down to the fact that Alcorn really couldn't consistently move the ball against Jackson's defense. Jackson struggled a bit, but they were able to find the big plays that they needed to seal the game in the second half. Felix Harper, 18 of 29 for Alcorn. 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 210 yards. He was sacked 5 times. Juan Anthony led Alcorn with 4 catches, 51 yards. And Key, 1 catch for 50 yards. CJ Bolar, 5 catches, 48 yards. To Charles Pringle, 3 catches, 37 yards. Stafford Anderson led Alcorn with 5 carries, 15 carries for 86 yards, 5.7 yards per carry average. Nico Duffy had 5 carries for 5 yards. With 5 carries for 2 yards net. Felix Harper, 7 carries, minus 25 yards. Harper did have a fumble, but he didn't lose it. Defensively, Alcorn was led by Juwan Taylor with 8 tackles, Cherylus with 6, Hensler and Wren with 5, Blunt with 4, tackles for loss. Cherylus with 2, Wren with 2, Blunt with 2.5, and Barfield with 1.5. Sacks were by Cherylus and Wren. They each had 1. Jackson State was led by Shedeur Sanders. He was 28 of 39, no interceptions, 3 touchdowns. He was sacked twice. Corbin, 9 catches, 110 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Hooks, 4 catches, 71 yards, and a touchdown. Rucker, 3 catches, 44 yards. Pickett, 4 catches, 24 yards. Pickett led Jackson State with 11 carries for 38 yards. Sanders, 7 carries, 23 yards. No fumbles for the Tigers. Defensively, they were led by Aubrey Miller with 8 tackles, Antoine Owens with 6, Huggins and Houston with 5, Al Young and Isaiah Bolden with 4, CJ Holmes with 3. Tackles for loss, Houston with 2, Owens, Hampton, Gaddy, and Brown each had a tackle for loss. Sacks were by Houston with 2, Hampton with 1, Brown with 1, and Gaddy with 1. Interception was by Shiloh Sanders. He had an interception in this game. So, Alcorn, they came out and they played hard. They just couldn't really consistently move the ball on Jackson State defense. Jackson State's offense kind of was up and down. Obviously the run game still isn't there, but the pass game did what it had to do. 3 big touchdown passes, 2 in the red zone, and 1 30-plus yard touchdown, giving Jackson State all the points that they needed. So this was basically a typical Jackson State game. I mean, nice crowd. I think they said 62,000. So nice crowd. I expect a really, really huge crowd in Jackson for the SWAC Championship game. So Jackson State finishes their season, regular season at 8-0 in conference and 10-1 overall. They were 6 points from being undefeated against ULM. So really a very good season for the Tigers. Obviously they did what they set out to do, and that was to win the East Division and put themselves in position to win the SWAC, and honestly set themselves up for a future run of championships if they can continue to develop and get better week in and week out. Alcorn finished their first season in the West Division in second place at 5-3 in the division, 6-5 overall. Up and down season for Alcorn, not really an Alcorn type season that most people expected. They lost to North Carolina Central at the beginning of the season, kind of put them behind the 8 ball a little bit. That first half against Pine Bluff was kind of a issue. They came back, they ripped off some wins, and then they lost a couple games in a row before beating Prairie View last week and then losing this week. So an up and down season for Alcorn, 6-5 regular overall record, 5-3 in conference, and that pretty much puts a bow on week 12. Like I said, this has been a very entertaining season. Like I said, we got one week of football left, and there's only 3 games in week 13. So there's the Turkey Day Classic on Thursday with Alabama State hosting Tuskegee. That's a 2 o'clock 2 o'clock kickoff, ESPN Plus broadcast. Saturday is Valley and Prairie View hooking up in Prairie View. That's a 2 o'clock kickoff, ESPN Plus broadcast. And then the Bayou Classic, 4 o'clock Saturday uh, in New Orleans, Southern and Grambling. NBC Sports is broadcasting that game. So this is pretty much the end of the regular season coming up in week 13. Then the SWAC Championship follows. So we pretty much have ran the gambit through the SWAC, and now we pretty much know where we're gonna go. So this has been a really good season. It's been an entertaining season of SWAC football, and to everybody who is new to SWAC football, I hope you enjoyed it. I know it had not been the best games, but there have been some entertaining games. And the season all comes down to December 4th at 3 o'clock Central Time. ESPN2 broadcast Jackson State hosting Prairie View SWAC Championship. Make sure you check that out. That's in 2 weeks. Bayou Classic is this weekend. Turkey Day Classic is Thursday. Prairie View Valley also Saturday. And the Celebration Bowl follows when the SWAC Championship winner will play South Carolina State. So with that being said, I'm Steve Wedge, your tour guide. I'm signing out. Like I said, we'll see how the Rattlers fare if they make the playoffs or if they don't. Join us on Wednesday, week 13 preview. Thursday, Thanksgiving, live SWAC Smoke episode as usual, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. Week 13 recap on Sunday. And that's going to do it for me, man. I'm up out of here. Y'all enjoy y'all day. We will holler at you.